In today's video I'm going to show you how I took these two pictures from home using the Fujifilm XT4. I will show you exactly what I did, from the concept, what gear I used, my exact settings, so that you can reproduce the exact same shoot at home. And if you're interested to buy any of the items that I used for this shoot, check out the links in the description. Without further ado, let's get started. So today we are taking a picture of this particular item here, which is an iWatch. Now this is not my watch, this is my girlfriend's watch, so thanks to her for sponsoring the video, I guess. I want to showcase the iWatch not only as a tech accessory, but also of a feminine kind of accessory. So what I did for this shoot is to basically showcasing the iWatch with other items such as dry flowers or books or pens, to have both the tech side but also the more feminine aspect. Now everything that I'm using for this shoot, I took it from home. I did not buy anything in particular for this shoot. And I encourage you to do the same. Try to experiment with things that you have at home and try to practice. That's the only way to get better at it. So when it comes to the setup that I use the Fujifilm XT4 that I'm currently using to film this video, paired with the XF 16-55mm f2.8. Originally I started this shoot with the 33mm f1.4, but eventually I decided to go for a more tighter composition, which is why I eventually switched to the 16-55. The 16-55 is plenty sharp, but also allows me to have enough flexibility to work on my composition for this kind of shoot. As you can see, I live in a pretty small apartment and I don't have the flexibility to move my camera around as much as I would like to adjust my composition. When it comes to the light, I use the Godox AD300 Pro paired with the AD60S softbox. Now I personally use the AD300 Pro because I also use this light for outdoor portrait, and the power that it can deliver is really welcome for this kind of situation. But for indoor product photography shoots, you don't necessarily need that kind of power. So an AD200 Pro or even a speed light would do the trick for this kind of shoot. Finally, I synchronized the camera and the AD300 Pro using the Godox X Pro. So now I understand that this is not the cheapest setup out there, and I personally decided to go for a strobe setup because I wanted to record BTS while doing the shoot, and using a strobe would allow me to overpower ambient light. But if you are at home and you do not have this kind of light, then just you use a continuous light, adjust your settings accordingly, and you can have the same kind of results. Alright, so now let's talk about the first shot. So before thinking about light, I always think about composition. I first placed the iWatch on the gray mat that I use on my desk for my mouse and my keyboard. I did a book, a small pen, and some dry flowers to try to give that half tech, half feminine vibe that I was going for. As I said earlier, I first started with the 33mm f1.4, but then moved to the 16-55mm f2.8 to get a tighter shot on the watch. As you can see, I moved around the items quite a lot until I was satisfied with the composition, and only once I'm satisfied with the composition, I then try to add the light. I added the AD300 Pro to have the light source coming from the right side of the picture, basically because I did not want to have the dry flower casting any shadow on the main subject. Now let's talk about the settings that I used. So first, I always try to minimize the ISO when it comes to product photography. I kept my aperture around f5.6 to f8 to be in the sweet spot of the lens and to also have as much in focus as possible. I then set my shutter speed to around 1/125 of a second, took one shot from there, and then adjusted the power of the strobe to make sure that I was happy with the exposure that I was getting. On top of that, once I was happy with the overall exposure and the composition was already set, I also added a small orange LED light to give a warmer tone in camera to the dry flowers, but also that orange look on the book to give it an older vibe. Finally, I also added a polarizer on my lens to get rid of some of the reflection that I had on the watch. And after taking several shots, this is the final picture that I ended up with. So this is the final picture without the edit, and here is the final picture with the edit. So as you can see, I only did minor edits to the pictures because I always try to capture as much as possible in camera and do as little as possible in post. The goal is to manipulate light and make sure that whatever I visualize before the picture is as close as possible to what I get in camera. Okay, so before we move to the second shot, if this video is helpful to you so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year and I need your help to do that. Thank you, and let's go back to the video. Alright, so when it comes to the second shot, I am trying to get a flat lay of both the dry flowers and the watch. Once again, I first focus on the composition, so I try to surround the watch with some dry flowers to make sure that I have every single element where I want it to be. Once I am done with the composition, I then placed the AD300 Pro on the top side of the watch to have a top side illuminated flat lay. As I was getting too much shadow from the bottom side, I added a reflector, and actually I didn't have a reflector at the moment of shooting this shoot, so I basically took a piece of aluminum foil and put it close to the watch to reflect part of the light that was emitted by the strobe. Again, I added that orange LED to give that warmer tone to the dry flowers, and I also added a circular polarizer to my lens to get rid of some reflections. When it comes to the settings, aperture at around f5.6 to f8, ISO at 160, and shutter speed at 1/125. Once again, I took several shots and changed the strobe setting based on the exposure that I wanted. So here is the final image before and after the edit. So yeah, as you can see, I don't have much space in my apartment, but I still managed to do it because I just try to work with what I have. And I just encourage you to do the same. You don't need to have huge amount of gear or a huge amount of space to do product photography. And you know, nowadays with COVID, etc., people have to stay more and more at home. So it's a great way to experiment and improve your photography. And I'm pretty happy with the result. It's quite incredible what you can do with the XT4 and the AD300 Pro. Let me know in the comment what you think about those two shots. Again, if you're interested in any of the items that I used today, check out some links in the description. Thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!